Landfall of Zeta. I'm going to give you a live look real quick here at what's going on from the ground in New Orleans area where Zeta, Category 2 hurricane, made landfall and is heading up the coast right now across the Louisiana parishes. This is just about 10 minutes ago now. Unfortunately, homes, buildings are falling apart. Tree lines are snapping in the central U.S. from ice. And the hurricane is roaring on with 100-mile-an-hour winds, 120-mile-per-hour gusts still. It should quickly decrease in intensity, but a lot of this area in the northeast quadrant does not have anything to stop the strength. So there still will be some bit of a strength that it's going to stay about the same, I think, until it really crosses over into Mississippi. So unfortunately, there's a few more hours of real scary stuff here. So switching over now, I do want to make a note that this did just make landfall. And I think what I'll do is just pause this and come back later, refreshing it so that we can get the latest. But here's what happened at 4 p.m. Central Time. They're calling it near Cocodrie, Louisiana, 110-mile-per-hour winds. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know this is heading right toward New Orleans. It just hit south of New Orleans, and those strong winds are going to persist until Louisiana. So getting a good look at what time of day it is there, I like to look at the GOES disc, full disc imagery. And you can see that the eye is finally gone. That's good news, but this is a ton of cloud cover. We've had a lot of space activity going on, and I noticed at the same time fall hit, and the cloud cover also just completely blanketed the earth. So good news here, the eye wall is already going away. I'll zoom in real close here so you can tell that in the last couple hours we're losing the eye, but strong winds are still surrounding that system. Zooming in on exactly what kind of strong winds is what I'll do after looking at these torrential downpours. These red areas and darks is where you're going to get the strongest rains, the kind of rain where you're not going to be able to see the road. Or tornadoes. They will be rain-wrapped tornadoes oftentimes, very low to the ground because these clouds are originating right at the surface. Everything's saturated. So especially these lines here you see that is about to cross over Mobile. So Mobile area, Biloxi just got this, is about to get hit with some very strong winds, what are called gust fronts. I'm going to switch now to the radar instead of satellite and show you what I mean here. Some of these lines come out with higher cloud tops, colder cloud tops, and especially where the red is here, the torrential downpours, and then you saw a lightning blast. We also are seeing lightning blasting off near the center. Those are going to be some of the stronger regions for downpours and tornadic activity. Tornadoes also do have a tendency to occur in some of these storms that pop up along here, but luckily, temperature-wise, that I'll get into in just a moment, tornadoes are not as big of a threat this time around as they were with Delta. So that's going to lessen our storm reports. And I'm going to go ahead and check the feed. I've been having trouble here lately with a lot of my feeds coming in. I had some setting issues arise, and I think I fixed everything, and I'll see if there's any comments. So yes, looks better. And I'm seeing that Pamela Brown is here. Hi, Rebecca, and tornado threat for South Carolina. So luckily, Pamela, I'm not seeing anything bad like with Delta, but we will look ahead at that now. So perfect timing on the question. And so temperatures and upper level winds is what I'll use here. People tend to call that wind shear. And now the temperature gradient is also something that drives that weather. So she's asking for South Carolina specifically. And we do see that come tomorrow as the storm system is moving past, I believe by then it will be a tropical depression moving past near the Charlotte area, close to eastern Tennessee, through Virginia perhaps, onward toward as a depression toward DC. So looking at these temperatures, all orange over South Carolina. Then now when we're getting this mixture, and you see that there's what's called convergence and divergence in the wind flow, we see that instead of going directly parallel, like you see in the tight-knit circulation of the hurricane right now around the eye wall, it's all going in the same direction. When you get these pockets of wind barbs that are going away from each other just slightly or together just slightly, it will either inhibit or allow the air to flow up into the sky. So when it kind of gives an opening here, it's pushing together. You're going to have downward motion. Per the model at this point, so somewhere in this area, surely there will be what's called convergence, and it will push the air together at the upper level, or in this case, the lower level, and then upward it can go. Now, when we go up in the sky, if I'm at the jet level on this same time period, we're seeing that they're all flowing very much similarly. But if you look very closely, you can see that rather than parallel, there's just a hint of the convergence in some zones. And some of these regions are what will help induce tornadic activity. So here it's really coming together fast and over a large area by this time. That means that in the upper area, if it's coming up together in the upper areas, down below, it's going to be pushing down. So we won't have clouds popping up. It'd be the opposite. But rather over here in South Carolina, let's look at a day before, Pamela. A few hours before. We do see some of those zones of what's called the diffluence and divergence as well. In this case, where the winds are going away from one another over Virginia. So I bet if we back up just a little bit, and these are all models, so what I'd really say here is in your sunrise hours. Even overnight, it could be hairy for you guys as this passes. Hairy might not be the best technical term, but it could get frightening for sure as these little zones and pockets of upper air flow away from one another. It wants to fill in with air just by way of pressure gradients. So that's going to cause the air down below at the surface to rise up fast. So as long as there's moisture in the air, which there's a ton of, it can drive the severe weather threat. So those will be the time periods that you want to look in the Carolinas also, and in Georgia and in Alabama, just a little bit preceding overnight tonight through Atlanta. We'll see that sort of same pattern going on in the upper air with moisture. So there will be a threat, I would say, stretching mostly specifically. I do agree a lot with this model here that the threat line will be in these areas where the wind is not parallel but kind of going away from one another. So overnight through Alabama, central, northern Alabama, overnight a little later through the northern portions of Georgia and even in through Tennessee, and then the Carolinas by sunrise and just a bit before as well. So I will play this out at the upper level and then again down below, focusing on how these really are changing quickly as the storm system moves on. And that was just a little bit more enhanced with Delta, allowing for even more twisters. So going to the mid-levels, I'll start it over. This is where usually the moisture is. And in this case, there's moisture at almost every level. Now, wind shear does help drive these storms, so what happens down below also matters. In those situations, I realized down below, the airflow will be going a lot with this central pressure that we're seeing with the storm, and things peaking around Thursday for the zones that are going to be more embedded in the weather where we could be seeing tornadoes. And so another way to look at that then is by the winds too. The wind speeds. The white is the strongest. And I'll play it out from now. Here we go. Backtrack it again. This is the jet level. And yes, again, kind of like Delta, I was on the green screen showing how there was a lot more of the action that we're seeing now passing the Carolinas by Thursday that did involve a lot of tornado reports. It was that times, this kind of pattern where it's really sloppy in the upper levels and mid levels is, I guess, one way to put it. You see a lot of different colors is the easy way that I put it. That's kind of one way of just noticing, oh, there's quite a bit of shear, and that can also help the tornadoes spin up. So yes, the Carolinas, I would put it at a low threat, very low threat, but it is definitely something to prepare for, that there could easily be tornadoes embedded in some of the severe weather that passes overhead for those regions tomorrow. And, possibly even in through Friday. It would be much more isolated, but you can see some of these strong winds linger far behind the storm for quite a few reasons. So there'll still be isolated reports going on until the weekend, I believe. But really, we've just got a quick 24 hours for the worst to get over. And now I'll peek back, see if anybody has any other questions, since tornado threat is well gone through, and let this loop on the satellite infrared, but I'm going to zoom out quite a bit so we can see other things, as in the storm, the super typhoon that was traveling over the Philippines became unfortunately deadly and then made landfall near central Vietnam, is passing Laos with some wind speeds similar to what we saw here with the landfall just south of New Orleans as the category 2 Zeta. So now Rebecca is in Iredell, or asking about, maybe it's Iredell, North Carolina, or Iredell, but either way, I could look closer at that. I tend to go broad with a lot of this stuff because to do a pinpoint forecast for that, I'll zoom in and show you some reasons why it's hard until day of. But I will show you in a moment and see who else has questions. And hello to everybody else. Jamie, Kelly, Brenda, nice to see you all. And looks like, oh, my good NOLA friend didn't make it in yet, but some of my friends were on. I feel so bad. I have a lot of friends in this area where Zeta just made landfall. I'm right now in Hawaii, by the way, in the middle here. We're finally getting weather. It's just been a dry drought all hurricane season, and now we're going to have a wet season, one way to put it. So here's the wetness going on for the southeast, and then Iredell, North Carolina. What I would say about this, I'm not sure where it is, so I'm going to find out on the map first. Or Iredell. Whoa. So just north of Charlotte. Simple. Now this is a lot of tornado weather. Has to do with topography. So one way to do this is then to switch to satellite view. When I'm getting into, like, let's say more localized forecasts, I would need to use something like this. And there's so many ways to view the world now. So I'm looking here to see, I don't see any huge land masses. I know the Appalachians are the biggest peaks nearby from what I understand. And then, yeah, so we have really, it's not anything that would happen in this region, tornado-wise, tomorrow, like I was saying. Again, still, I don't see any good reason to believe that it'd be anything strong or long-lived. So these would be really quick things that could pull off some shingles from rooftops over by Woodford Green and drop them in Mallard Creek, let's say. And then whole roofs, like we just saw ripped off, a whole building go down, like we just saw right here. We're not likely to see that with these kind of tornadoes. So I do want to see where they're at right now with this. So this is more right here, representative, these kind of shingles coming off, of what the twisters would be capable of, lifting up that type of debris that would be crossing the southeast United States. Right away with these gust fronts crossing Biloxi, crossing Mobile today, I would say that we could see some of the stronger tornadoes. But then as this goes further and further inland, we're lucky that we'll see a really major decrease. And there's not too many drivers for severe weather other than the major storm itself. So tomorrow's southeast outlook, mid to northern Alabama, eastern Tennessee could look like this, Georgia, Atlanta, and then for tomorrow when sun is rising, even some of the overnight hours could be looking like this right now, through North Carolina, South Carolina, and then into D.C. So little by little, it will be less and less widespread. Right now, this is hitting a large area, hundreds of miles at once, and then little by little, we'll turn into smaller storm clusters of smaller bits of damage. Very quick moving is the good news there. So back to seeing how this eye wall is looking. Now, infrared really shows an eye wall where visible does not always. So I like to keep it on here, and just to give you reference, the visible I don't believe is having any kind of defined eye wall anymore, just a tad. It's starting to bury itself again. So I don't believe any more defined eye wall will increase. And we'll just continue to see a downgrade. I hope everybody's staying safe. And hi, Jamie, watching from Kentucky. Could get a little interesting in your skies too. Beautiful sunsets for sure, I'm sure. If anything else, I saw that some of this weather and the severe weather outlook, I'll do some winds, mid and upper level wind outlook for you, because perhaps I noticed the Ohio Valley could be getting a bit of the severe weather as the storm moves further north, because the temperature differential was so great with this ice storm that just enhanced Santa Ana winds, 140 mile per hour gust over here in California because of that temperature differential. I can hardly say it. It was unbelievable. I grew up with those. But playing out this model now, even over the Ohio Valley, there's some little bits of chance that Kentucky will have beautiful sunsets nonetheless, but even a chance for severe weather in the not so much this time here, not tomorrow, but overnight things could get a little wild there too. So I do believe the sun has just set or is about to set in that area. I always like to use this to know for sure. Here we go. It's about setting. And I'll bet you anything, Jamie. I'd love to see you drop a picture. I don't know if you can drop a picture here, but I'm a sunset lover. So go ahead if you feel the urge, anybody, and enjoy the weather. I hope that this can pass by without bringing any horror stories to anybody's front doors. However, I'm sure there'll be a mass cleanup going on here. And just hoping everybody's sleeping safe. Don't be underneath any pine trees, please. Make sure you're tuckered away, nice, safe, and sound. Have a great day, and I'll be on later after my space weather class, so talk to you later. Oh, on that note, before I end actually space weather class, I am talking to Tamara Scove. This is my new professor. This is a link she hasn't given out yet. Now, I will be watching this stream. It's a discussion that she gave to the FAA. And as a news producer, I was speaking with them a lot from the scientist perspective. So they've actually started to interview her with her expertise and how it relates to our communications on Earth. And there's so much to be said about that and learned about it, the properties of electromagnetic radiation. So she and I had a meeting today on what I'll study in my coming years with a master's, possible PhD, and understanding more about how we can long-term forecast hurricanes. Right now, we're getting these hurricane updates, and they're looking ahead a few days. But if you ask me, we could do this a couple weeks in advance. So I mentioned this storm 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned it as a 50-50 chance that it could have burst in last week, but did not. And the reasoning, it had space relations. I'll go ahead and open up Space Weather Live. And this is what I'm studying now. So I noticed that then finally we have a very active, oh my goodness, it doubled. You guys, I didn't come on here for a day. Wow, wild stuff. I don't even know how to tell you how crazy it is yet, but I'm learning the communications now. So these bright regions on the sun, these three, they're in the latitudes and facing us right now, so that there's coronal mass ejections and plasma, if it gets so intense, can actually burst off toward Earth and affect our magnetosphere. So what that means to us, I should have done that a while ago. What that means to us here is that I've noticed intensity of lightning increase and even storm production. So since finally something burst off, a couple of them last week, we did see Zeta uptick in strength and become that storm that it is now. So that's something I had been watching and predicting more than a week ago. So that's what I hope to do here with my classes. And I'll talk to you later after more classes and be on in a couple days again. Have a great day.